AITA for refusing to share my husband's life insurance payout after my parents ignored my accident? My name is Renee, and I am 29 years old. I was married to Samuel for 5 years, which truly felt like a blink of an eye and a lifetime all at once. We met in college. He was studying civil engineering and I was in accounting. We got married practically right after graduation, while we still had that excitement that the best was yet to come. Samuel got a job at a construction firm, and I joined a small accounting practice downtown. It was one of those places where everyone knows everyone and the coffee is almost always watery, but the atmosphere is quiet. With effort and patience, we bought a little house in the southern suburbs, in a quiet subdivision. It had a little garden in front and a white fence that made me laugh because it looked like a postcard. Yes, I know it sounds cheesy, but we loved it. Samuel spent his weekends fixing things, painting or planting shrubs. He always ended up with hands full of dirt or paint on his t-shirt. Even so, he looked happy, as if that little piece of property was his favorite project. In those months, we talked a lot about having children. Samuel really had that hope, the kind you can see in someone's eyes. He already had names picked out and everything. Renee, we are going to have the cutest kids, he would tell me when we were lying in the living room watching TV. They are going to have your intellect and hopefully my height. I wasn't desperate to get pregnant, honestly, but seeing him so excited was contagious. It made me think that yes, I wanted to. A few weeks before the accident, we went to visit a college friend of his, Marcus, who lives a couple of hours away. We left after lunch to avoid the worst of the traffic, and it still took us quite a while. Marcus had just become a dad, and Samuel was super excited to meet the baby. We had a good time. We ate, we talked, and Samuel spent the whole afternoon holding Mason, Marcus's son, making faces at him and asking 1,000 things, as if he were taking an intensive parenting course. On the way back, everything was going normally at first. We were talking about returning soon, and Samuel was joking that he was going to be a better dad than Marcus because he was going to teach our kids to play soccer properly, to take penalty kicks, and to organize a pickup game instead of just watching matches from the couch. It had rained hard that day, and the pavement was still wet. Samuel drove carefully like always. He was one of those drivers who waits, uses turn signals, and slows down for curves even if no one else does. We were already on our way back, near the city limits, when we entered a sharp curve. Samuel slowed down. I remember perfectly because I even told him, "Good thing you are taking it easy." Out of nowhere, a car entered our lane. It was coming fast, too fast. Everything happened in seconds. Samuel turned the wheel to avoid a head-on collision. I screamed. I heard the impact of metal against metal and felt my chest tighten from the fright. The other car hit us on Samuel's side. Afterward, I don't have clear images, only sensations. Spinning, my body out of control, the noise, and then a sickening thud. Later I found out we hit a utility pole and then nothing. Black. I woke up in the hospital 3 days later. Everything hurt. My head buzzed as if they were squeezing me from the inside. I had my left arm in a cast and bandages on various parts of my body. A nurse approached when she saw I opened my eyes. "Ma'am, how do you feel?" I didn't even know what to answer. The first thing that came out was, "And Samuel? Where is Samuel?" The nurse stood there with that face you never forget. She didn't answer me. She just turned and went for the doctor. A few minutes later, Dr. Salvatore entered. He was an older man, gray-haired, with a seriousness that anticipates the worst. He sat near me and spoke slowly. "Renee, I am very sorry. Your husband did not survive the accident. He passed away on impact." I don't know if I screamed. I don't know how long I cried. I only remember feeling like I couldn't breathe, as if they had left a hole in my body. They sedated me because I was in a very bad state, or so they told me later. When I woke up again, the doctor explained my injuries. Broken arm, 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, cuts and bruises everywhere. "You were very lucky," he told me. Physically, maybe. Inside, I didn't feel lucky about anything. The next day, an officer came to talk to me. He explained that the other driver was under the influence at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. He entered our lane and continued for a good stretch before losing control and crashing further ahead. He survived with minor injuries. My husband did not. I spent that day in a fog. The nurses came in and out. I nodded or shook my head without listening well. A hospital psychologist, one of those who specializes in grief, tried to talk to me. I watched her speak and felt that her voice came from far away. In my head there was only one phrase. Samuel wanted to be a dad, and now he wasn't here. On the third day of being conscious, I gathered the courage to call my parents. Not out of pride, not out of habit, but out of necessity. I was alone in a hospital bed with my body in pieces and my world broken. I needed my mom. I needed my dad. My mom, Claudia, answered. She sounded distracted, as if she were doing something else. Well, Mom, it's Renee. Oh, hi, daughter. What happened? I'm busy right now. I swallowed hard. Mom, Samuel and I had an accident. I paused because my throat closed up. He didn't survive. Samuel passed away. There was silence for a few seconds. Then my mom let out, "Oh, Renee, how terrible. We are very sorry." And that was it, just like that, as if I had told her my refrigerator broke down. Mom, I'm in the hospital. I can't handle this alone. I need you to come with Dad. I need help to organize Samuel's things. I can't even walk well. My mom responded with a calmness that left me frozen. Daughter, it's just that you are talking at a very bad moment. Fiona just got a promotion, and this weekend we are having a lunch at home. Everything has been planned for weeks, and the celebration trip leaves in a few days. We can't move anything. I stayed mute. Mom, my husband died. Yes, Renee, I understand, but Fiona has worked very hard. Besides, isn't Samuel's family there? His parents, his sister? They can take charge, right? And she hung up on me. Just like that. I stared at the phone screen for 10 minutes without understanding. Samuel was gone, I was in a hospital, and my parents were worried about a lunch and a trip. An hour later, Samuel's parents arrived. Their names are Henry and Marilyn, and his sister is Lucy. I always got along well with them. They weren't perfect, but they loved each other. They took care of each other, and they spoke the truth. As soon as they entered my room, we cried. Henry hugged me carefully so as not to hurt me and told me, Renee, we are going to get through this. You are not alone. Marilyn grabbed my trembling hand and told me, Sweetheart, he loved you. He mentioned you all the time. Lucy was the one who moved me the most. She brought me clothes from home, helped me wash my hair in the hospital sink, and got me basic things that I hadn't even thought of. Don't you worry about anything, she told me. We are going to take care of the service, the church, and the cemetery. You concentrate on recovering. There was a service that same week. I couldn't go because I was still in too much pain. Lucy brought me her phone and put me on a video call for a little while just to listen to the prayers and feel, even from a distance, that they were saying goodbye to him with respect. I didn't tell them about my parents because I was ashamed. There they were, devastated by losing their son, yet taking care of me and moving heaven and earth so that I wouldn't carry everything alone. Meanwhile, my parents couldn't even leave a lunch. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the hospital ceiling and unintentionally began to drift back. Years and years of small things that together were no longer small. It had always been like this with Fiona. Even as girls, Fiona got into trouble at school. She skipped classes, talked back, and turned in homework late. When the school called, my parents defended her. She just gets bored because the level is too low for her, my mom would say. The teachers don't understand her creativity. I, on the other hand, was the one with perfect attendance and good grades, the one who stayed quiet and complied. When I brought awards home, my dad would say, "Good," and stick them on the refrigerator for a week until they got lost between grocery lists and receipts. In high school, Fiona barely passed while I lived to study. When it was time for college, they paid for tutors, courses, and whatever was needed for Fiona to enter an expensive private art school. To me, they said, "You are smart, you'll figure it out." I entered a state university with a scholarship, yet at the dinner table they talked more about Fiona, about how special she was and how much she was achieving, even though she didn't finish anything. When Fiona left college halfway through to find herself, my parents applauded her and let her live in the house without contributing anything for years. When I graduated and got my first job, the question was, "When are you going to move out? We want to use your room so Fiona has her space." Even at my wedding, Fiona stole the spotlight. She arrived late because she had a bad hair day. At the reception, she had too many drinks and asked for the microphone to give a speech that sounded like mockery in disguise. I am proud of Renee because she finally found someone who can stand her. Samuel got mad, but I told him to let it go, that that's how my family was. The worst part was that they always found an excuse for everything. If she got fired from a job, it was because they didn't value her ideas. If she crashed my dad's car because she was on her cell phone, it was because the other guy wasn't careful. If she got into debt with credit cards buying unnecessary things, it was because she deserved it since she had worked a lot. And now, when I needed help to say goodbye to my husband, they were busy celebrating a promotion. The following days in the hospital passed as if someone had turned down the volume on the world. Samuel's family visited daily. They brought me food, gave me updates on the service, and asked if I needed anything. Henry and Marilyn took care of everything with the funeral home, the church, and the paperwork. Lucy even brought me clothes for the service and helped me choose what to wear because I couldn't even stand up properly. She brought me makeup and told me, "Samuel would want to see you looking your best." He always showed off his wife. 3 days before the service, I decided to give my family one last chance. I sent a text message to my mom with all the details: date, time, and place. The service for Samuel is Thursday at 11 in the morning at the chapel near here. Afterward, we go to the cemetery. I really hope you can come. I need you. She answered me 2 hours later. Renee, tomorrow we leave with Fiona. With the promotion, they gave her a bonus and she invited us to Cancun for a week. We can't cancel. Fiona worked very hard and deserves to celebrate. We are sorry. We won't be able to make it. I stared at the message with cold hands. Cancun Beach, sun. All while I was going to say goodbye to my husband, I dialed Fiona. She answered fast, sounding happy, as if she were waiting for the call. Renee, Mom told me about Samuel. How sad. She paused briefly to be polite and then spoke with excitement. But hey, guess what? We are going to Cancun. They gave me a big bonus, and I wanted to do something special with the family. Fiona, the service is Thursday. Can't you move the trip a few days? Her voice changed immediately, turning cold. Renee, I am not going to change my plans. People pass away all the time. That is life. But I don't get promoted often. I want to celebrate with my parents. They are proud of me. You are talking about my husband. He was your brother-in-law, Renee. I barely knew him. Moving the trip isn't going to bring him back. Stop the drama already. I didn't answer. I hung up. My strength left me, and I threw the phone against the wall of the hospital room. That was when it hit me completely like a silent blow. My family didn't love me. Not in the way I had tried to believe. I was the one who functioned so they would feel good, the responsible one, the one who didn't cause problems, the perfect comparison to justify Fiona. But when my life broke, they didn't even make the attempt. Thursday dawned gray and drizzly. The hospital lent me a wheelchair because I still walked poorly. Samuel's family picked me up and took me to the chapel. It was full. Samuel's colleagues from the construction company, friends, neighbors, cousins, and people who truly loved him were there. Samuel was one of those guys who remembers your birthday, helps you move a couch without being asked, and makes you feel seen. During the whole service, I kept turning to look at the back with an absurd hope that my parents would show up, even if they were late. Not one of them arrived. Afterward, at the cemetery, while they lowered the casket, Lucy approached slowly and asked me in a low voice, "Renee, where is your family?" "We thought they were going to come," she added. I felt the heat of shame on my face. I didn't want to say it, but I did. They went on a trip. Fiona had a promotion, and they didn't want to miss her celebration. Henry and Marilyn looked at each other without saying anything. Lucy pressed her lips together as if holding back and only said, "Renee, your family always seemed a bit off to me, but this is unforgivable." After that, I stayed 1 more week in the hospital. The doctors wanted to monitor the concussion, make sure I didn't get dizzy when walking, and check that the pain subsided. Samuel's family was there daily. They helped me with physical therapy exercises, brought me books, and sat with me when I didn't want to talk. When they finally discharged me, Henry and Marilyn took me home. Opening the door and entering without Samuel was the hardest thing I have ever lived through. Everything was just as we left it. His coffee cup in the sink, his boots in the entryway, notes on the fridge with his handwriting reminding us to buy milk, or don't forget light bulbs. The silence weighed heavy. Lucy helped me go through clothes and personal things. We donated a lot, but I kept his favorite flannel shirt and his wedding ring. Henry sat with me to start understanding the paperwork that comes when someone passes away. Procedures, shared accounts, insurance, things no one teaches you. A couple of weeks later, when I could already sit without getting dizzy and walk slowly without feeling the floor give way, I went to see attorney Benjamin Torres. He was the lawyer who had helped Samuel with the purchase of the house and with his estate planning. I expected something simple, a standard life insurance policy and a bit of savings. The lawyer spread papers on the desk. Renee, Samuel was very careful. By will, you inherit everything. The house, the accounts, his retirement fund. I imagined that, but then he continued. Besides, your husband had 2 insurance policies. One was the company one, the typical benefits package, and the other he contracted on his own some time ago, precisely so that you would be protected if something happened. Between the 2, they total $600,000, and you are the sole beneficiary. I felt like I couldn't breathe. $600,000. Yes. And there is another smaller policy of $15,000 destined to cover funeral expenses. I walked out of there as if walking through water. Samuel never told me the exact amount. I knew he had insurance, of course, but not that much. Even with everything, my first thought wasn't that life was resolved financially. It was, I would trade it all to have you here. Money doesn't sit in the living room, doesn't hug you, and doesn't say, I'm home. Money doesn't fill the silence. I asked for 2 more weeks at work to settle myself. My boss was understanding and let me return little by little. Work helped because it forced me to think about something else. About a month passed since the accident, and for the first time, I had a week without strange calls, without shocks, and without people demanding anything. I was still grieving, but I could already get up, make myself food, and get through an afternoon without feeling I was going to break at any moment. Samuel's family called me often, and I went to a grief therapist one day at a time. Then, around the 5th week on a Saturday afternoon, I heard cars parking in front of my house. I peeked through the window and saw my parents' sedan and Fiona's SUV. My stomach sank. They knocked on the door. I opened it. My mom entered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and gave me a quick hug. Renee, daughter, how are you? We have been very worried. My dad, Robert, looked around as if he were evaluating the property. Fiona walked slowly through the living room, touching things, like someone visiting an apartment for rent. She grabbed one of Samuel's photography awards, lifted it and said, "What a nice house, you have a lot of space." I felt a cold anger. "What do you want?" I asked. My mom sat on the couch and patted the cushion next to her. "Can't we come to see our daughter? We wanted to know how you are handling your loss." "My loss?" I looked at her fixedly. "Do you mean Samuel's death? The service you didn't go to because you went to Cancun?" A silence fell. Fiona was the first to speak, as always. "Renee, we were in shock. We didn't know how to react. That's why we left. We needed time to process." I looked at her and thought the lie didn't even come out well. "What do you want?" I repeated. My parents looked at each other. My mom cleared her throat. "Well, we found out from Mrs. Gloria, the neighbor, that you received a large payment from Samuel's insurance." I remembered that call. Mrs. Gloria asked me how I was going to pay for everything, and I, still stunned, said something like, "The life insurance is going to cover the expenses." That was enough. My mom continued with the voice of someone asking a simple favor. "We thought you could help Fiona. She is looking at condos in the city and needs money for the purchase. With half she could buy a very nice place. Half, $300,000. Half of my late husband's life insurance so my sister could buy herself a condo." My dad finally spoke seriously, as if he were giving a lesson. "Renee, Fiona has worked very hard. She deserves a good place, and you have more than enough." I saw the 3 of them sitting in my living room. This was the living room where Samuel and I talked about children, where we planned a future, and where I now ate dinner alone. I understood something that hurt because of how clear it was. I didn't know them, or maybe I did, but I had spent years justifying them. "Leave," I said. "Renee, don't be selfish," my mom answered. "Fiona is your sister. Please get out of my house," I repeated louder. Fiona got up with her face hardened. "You are being completely irrational. We are family. Family helps each other." My voice trembled. And where was my family when I was in the hospital? Where were you when I needed to say goodbye to Samuel? I matter to you right now because you think you can take money from me? Not because of me. They left with tight lips. My mom still turned at the door as if expecting me to change my mind. I didn't. When I closed the door, I sat on the couch and cried for 2 hours. Not from sadness but from rage, from exhaustion, and from everything I was finally seeing without filters. I thought it would end there, that they would be embarrassed and go away. I was wrong. The next day the calls started. My mom dialed 6 times. When I finally answered, she said, "Renee, we have to talk about this with a cool head. Fiona needs that money, and you are being very stubborn." I hung up. Then Fiona dialed. "I can't believe you are acting like this. I am your sister. I have never asked you for anything." It was a lie. Fiona had asked me for money 1,000 times to get out of a jam and never paid me back. I hung up again. Then my dad left a super long voicemail saying he was disappointed in my selfishness, and that Samuel would be ashamed of me for turning my back on the family. That message lit something inside me. I blocked their numbers. They didn't give up. They started writing to me from other people's phones. My Aunt Patricia, my dad's sister, sent me messages telling me to think carefully, claiming this should be settled in private to avoid exposing the family. I didn't answer. In fact, Patricia even wanted to summon me to talk at my parents' house as if I were the one who had to apologize. That was when I understood that what hurt them wasn't Samuel, nor did I hurt them. The potential damage to their image hurt them. Then my mom decided to make it public. She uploaded a very long post on Facebook, a tearful story where she said her daughter had received money and refused to help the family in a difficult moment. She didn't mention Samuel. She didn't mention they went on a trip the day of the service. She painted it as if I had won the lottery and was being stingy. The comments started to pour in. Cousins, acquaintances, people from my parents' church, and neighbors saying how bad it was, asking how it was possible, and stating that one should support their sister. I saw that and felt the heat of injustice rising. 2 days later, I couldn't take it anymore. I made my own post. I told everything calmly, including dates. I explained that my husband passed away in an accident, that I was hospitalized, that I asked for help to organize the farewell, and that they told me no because they had a lunch and a trip for my sister's promotion. I posted screenshots of text messages where my mom said they were going to Cancun and couldn't go to the service. I posted the screenshot where Fiona wrote to me, verbatim, "People die all the time, it's not a reason to stop enjoying." I also uploaded parts of messages where they called me selfish for not giving them $300,000 for a condo. The reaction was immediate. This time the comments were not against me, they were against them. They went on a trip instead of accompanying you to say goodbye to your husband? Asking a widow for money from the husband's life insurance is a low blow. Don't give them anything. They already showed who they are. What an embarrassment of a family. My mom's post disappeared fast, but it was too late. My post was shared. There were screenshots. In a week, everyone knew. 2 weeks later, I received an email from my mom. It wasn't a call or a message, but a formal email, as if a company were speaking to me. It said, in summary, that my spectacle had embarrassed the family, that they were indignant with my greed and my lack of loyalty, and that from that moment they were cutting all contact with me. I was no longer welcome in their house, they would not look for me again, and she hoped I was happy for choosing money over family. I stared at the screen and a dry laugh came out. The audacity. They were telling me that the people who only appeared when they smelled money, who went to the beach when I was burying my husband. Even so, what I felt afterward wasn't pain, it was relief. It was as if for the first time in my life they took off a load I didn't even know I was carrying. I no longer had to compete for their attention. I no longer had to prove I was worthy. Meanwhile, Samuel's family continued being what they always were. Present. When I told them about the drama on Facebook and the email, Marilyn shook her head and told me, "Renee, you are better off without people like that close to you." And there I made a decision that came from my heart. At the end of November, for Thanksgiving dinner, I invited Henry, Marilyn, and Lucy. I wanted to thank them. I wanted to feel at home without feeling guilt. I cooked what Samuel liked during that season. I made roast turkey, Marilyn's stuffing recipe, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and mac and cheese. I considered making dessert, but that day I barely had the strength to stand. After dinner, I told them I needed to talk. My palms were sweating. I have been thinking a lot about Samuel's life insurance, I started. I know he wanted me to be okay, but I also know how much he loved you, and I want you to be secure. I want to give you half. $300,000. They sat in silence. Marilyn brought her hand to her mouth, and her eyes filled with tears. Renee, no, we cannot accept that. Henry shook his head. That money is yours. Samuel did it for you. Lucy looked at me as if she didn't know what to say. I took a deep breath. Samuel loved you truly. And I love you too. You were there when no one else was. I don't want you to struggle ever, please. Took a lot to convince them. They didn't want to accept it out of pride and respect. In the end, they agreed with one condition. Everything had to be in writing so that no one could confuse the situation later, and I had to continue feeling part of the family. We signed a simple agreement with Attorney Torres, and with the papers in order, I made the transfer at the bank. It wasn't in a single transaction. We scheduled it in 2 parts to avoid any issues. Everything was clear. That was 6 months ago. Today I am doing well, considering everything. I miss Samuel every day. There are moments when the memory hits me as if it were the first week. But I have learned to be alone without feeling abandoned. I am still at my job because it helps me keep my mind occupied. I still go to grief therapy. I live in the house Samuel and I bought, with his shirt folded in a drawer and his note still stuck on the refrigerator because for some reason it calms me to see his handwriting. I am not ready to date anyone. I don't know if one day I will be. Right now, no. I have enough money to live calmly, yes, but the most important thing is something else. I have people who worry about me, truly. I haven't heard anything from my parents or Fiona since that email. Sometimes I wonder if Fiona got her condo. Then I remember how she spoke to me, how they left, and how they arrived at my living room to size up my belongings, and I get over it. Samuel's family became my family. We eat together on Sundays. They include me in everything. Lucy calls me sister. And she means it. Henry and Marilyn treat me like a daughter, like parents should treat their children. In the end, I understood something that cost me years to accept. Family isn't always blood. Family is who stays when your world falls apart. And I finally have one. Comment. Sometimes the hardest lessons in life come from the people we expect to love us most. It takes immense courage to accept that shared DNA does not automatically earn someone a permanent seat at your table. I want you to know it is completely okay to close the door on relationships that bring you nothing but pain and disrespect. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary for survival. True family shows up when the skies turn gray, not only when the sun is shining or when there is something to gain. Look at the people who hold your hand through the storms, and cherish them with everything you have. You have the power to redefine what home means and build a circle that genuinely supports your growth. Healing begins the moment you stop trying to prove your worth to people who are determined to misunderstand you. Trust your intuition, stand firm in your boundaries, and never apologize for choosing your well-being. I hope this reminds you that you are not alone when you open your heart to those who truly deserve to be there. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.